बनाए रखें।
Hi guys, this is episode 10 and the letter J, and I'm going to begin by talking about journals, scientific journals to be very specific, and two to be precise, the New England Journal of Medicine and the Lancet. Now what do they have in common other than medical journals, and what does it have to do with COVID? Well, there were three Indian American doctors, Dr. Mehra from Harvard, who's a cardiologist, and two with PhDs, Dr. Desai and Dr. Patel, that have published a study in the Lancet journal on hydroxychloroquine. Now, the study used data from a data analytics firm called Surgisphere, which took data from various different hospitals, 169 different hospitals across the globe. So it basically used observational data on hydroxychloroquine. They came to the conclusion that hydroxychloroquine was not effective in treating COVID-19. Now, where did the problems arise and why is there controversy over this? Well, the problems started arising after the article was printed. Now, in the Lancet, the article clearly states that the data was exempt from ethics review. That was one, that's in the fine print. But here's the problem. After the article was published, WHO, on seeing those results and that report, decided to withhold funding to 350 different studies on hydroxychloroquine. Now, Surgisphere then was asked to provide the raw data, which they of course did not do, citing various different reasons. So, The Guardian, the English newspaper, decided that they would do some investigating. They found that A, there was questionable ethics involved in actually gathering the data. B, some of the data may not actually be true, because when they contacted hospitals in Australia that was supposed to be using Surgisphere, everybody said that they were not using it. Also, there was data from hospitals in Africa before there were more than 2 cases of COVID on the entire continent. So, that was the problem. Now, subsequent to all of that questionable data and questionable science, the New England Journal of Medicine published an article from the same 3 authors on the use of antihypertensive drugs and COVID-19, suggesting that maybe they shouldn't be used. Again, similar thing, same company providing data. So, there were 2 big journals using questionable data and questionable ethics in a bid to publish information at a rapid rate. Now, all of that would not have been true had the controversy over Surgisphere, would not have been important had the controversy over Surgisphere's data collection been a problem. They possessed race data, which most hospitals are not willing to give out world over, and in most countries where it is actually illegal. So, that was one of the main problems. Now, Dr. Mehra subsequently retracted the article from the Lancet. WHO restarted all 350 of those studies on hydroxychloroquine. And as well as all of that, even though the study in the New England Journal of Medicine was retracted. But here's the problem. There's no integrity in this. Why it became a controversy was basically because both journals decided that they did not need to actually review an article well enough to understand whether it had been done following the correct protocol or not. Ethically, not correct on the parts of the journals. Also, do you believe them now that they have decided that this is the route that they're going to follow? That is the question I leave up to you guys to decide. Science remains questionable. Right, moving on from science to politics and the 3 lovely jokers of COVID-19. And we'll begin with everybody's favorite, Captain America, Uncle Sam's favorite son, Donald Trump himself. Now, Trump is one of the most lambasted figures across COVID-19. His policies have been abysmal. The United States has the highest death toll in the world. And it's even surpassed China. Now, the thing that you have to remember about Trump is that a lot of the stuff that he's done has completely failed. The reverse would probably have been better. He started by saying that he wants to liberate states. Again, we discussed that last week, so you can see what that is like. His decision on Black Lives Matter protests, bringing the army in, again, shows a person completely out of tune. But his medical decisions, backing hydroxychloroquine, backing remdesivir without adequate research. But my personal favorite, that one time that he said you could drink Lysol, a detergent that could be drunk. Lysol subsequently said, of course, that none of their products should be ingested. Just take that in for a moment. The second person on this list is Boris Johnson. Now, he's been a lambasted figure in Britain despite actually not doing all that much wrong. To be fair, the only really wrong move that he made was the decision on herd immunity. Now, it backfired on him pretty badly, and the English rate for infection doubled or tripled in that span of time where herd immunity was being propagated. It didn't work. He subsequently ended up in hospital with COVID, so karma, played its hand. And after he's come out and recovered, he has had to sort of struggle with the Black Lives Matter protests and some particularly racist, well, not racist, but insensitive comments from his cabinet. So Johnson's currently struggling. The third man on this list is Jair Bolsonaro. He's been in denial about COVID ever since the pandemic started. Brazil has probably one of the highest rates in the world because of that. But what's worse, he then decided that he would not allow the media to actually access that information, and the government of Brazil would stop giving out COVID data. That backfired as well, because the Supreme Court then ruled that he had to, and now it's almost like he's stuck his head in the sand like an ostrich and has been forced into acting. Moving on from that to journalism. Now, journalists have been a community during the pandemic that have had a lot of changes. You can see in a lot of reports that they're all going out with gas masks and selfie sticks and things like that. But being a journalist in these times is not safe. In India, over 50 journalists actually contracted the disease in the month of April itself. Newsrooms in Mumbai were actually emptying because the journalists were getting COVID-19. How do you stop that from happening? If you go to work, you infect other people. If you go out to work, you get infected. That was the simple logic. Now, in America, what's been happening during the Black Lives Matter protests, and you can see all of these journalists with masks and gas masks and all of that thing, their livelihoods are under threat because the government there has just been arresting journalists, the police in particular, just been arresting journalists with no particular reason, and it's been caught on camera in this CNN clip.
We walked away. I'm sorry?
You're under arrest.
Okay. Do you mind telling me why I'm under arrest, sir? Why am I under arrest, sir?
Officer is with CNN and he's on the air right now.
Okay.
You are arresting him live on CNN.
So now just remember that freedom of speech is something to protect, and journalists have a very important duty for us to protect that freedom of speech. Never has it been more under threat than a pandemic like this. You could end up in a situation where it's George Orwellian 1984 or something like the movie V for Vendetta. We don't want that. Let the journalists have their freedom of speech. Please, everybody else, stay home. Well, not anymore, but stay safe.
Hold your up, hold your up, hold your up, hold your up, hold your up.